Uh, Hi, this is Sanaz Shiraz. I am an embodiment coach for dating and relationship for strong and independent women and a course leader for therapeutic dances. Today, I'm honored to have my lovely friend and colleague, Courtney Schand, with me here, who is joining from US. And we know each other from our coaching training with Rory Ray, and we are both working very similar models like masculine and feminine energy, which many of you are familiar with. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, Sanaz.
Welcome to this podcast. And how are you doing today?
Great. Well, I'm really glad to be here, and I'm excited. I feel excited to be speaking with you.
Lovely. I hear you a lot and I follow you with fully excited, and you call yourself a nourishingist. What is the story of Courtney the Nourishingist? How does the word come from? How you are getting there? So tell us.
Yeah. So I worked for a lot of years as a registered dietitian here in the States. I think it's similar in Europe, but basically a dietitian is someone that specializes in helping people eat in order to prevent or cure different diseases. So that was my background. I did that for about 7 years of schooling and 7 years of working. And I found that there was this work of masculine and feminine that once I stumbled upon that for my own personal reasons, I started to see through that lens, hey, this is actually what's getting in the way of people that are my clients that are asking about their diet. So what I started to realize is, as a dietitian, I was coming at it from this very masculine, scientific, logical perspective. And the truth of what was happening is it's a very experiential process to make behavior changes. And people are so over dieting. And so I realized that they're not actually needing a new diet. They're really needing to be nourished from the inside out and from the outside in, which is something that Rory taught us, that model of making changes internally and externally and letting them kind of come together. So I started calling myself a nourishingist because, again, people are just tired of dieting and they really are looking for something deeper and more fulfilling holistically. And so that's the model that I've started to work within and have kind of developed from there.
Wow, I'm really excited to hear more about that. I said already introduced some feminine masculine energy, but would love to hear from your words. So what is feminine energy? Just a reminder for my audience, the masculine energy and the interaction and the dance.
Yeah, so on the spectrum of feminine to masculine, they're kind of each other's counterparts that can find harmony together when we start to understand what each of them is naturally on their own and what they contribute to the partnership, to that dance that they come together in. So the feminine being more of the sensations, the experience, the emotions, the body-based experience of things. And the masculine being more of the logical, rational, conceptual kind of headspace. And the integration of the two, or the partnership of the two, is really what is beautiful and what we're both after in our teachings, is to learn how they work together and kind of come together to create this really beautiful, harmonious dance in the middle.
Lovely. And what I hear is none of them is wrong, right? So it's like just use is very, all of them have their beautiful.
Yeah. And as I teach it, it's actually less about being more of one or the other and more about finding where you naturally and authentically fall on that spectrum. when you do learn that about yourself, you're able to support different parts of you and to accept different parts of you. Okay, this is my masculine energy being activated, or this is my feminine energy that's needing some extra support. And when we start to have that level of awareness, we can get what we need and ask for what we need. And that's when interpersonal things really start to shift and get really empowering, mutually beneficial.
Absolutely. Wow. Lovely. I love your words. And what is losing weight to do with masculine and feminine energy? You already mentioned, but it's amazing other perspective to it, because we are really, familiar with so many aspects of losing weight out there. Is so many advertisement about, and we might try a lot. So what else has to do with masculine and feminine energy?
Yeah. So what I realized in working with thousands of people as a dietitian was that there was this particular dynamic that I see most often in women, because as I see it, the diet industry, the model of, calculating your calories and your macros and the, do kind of thing that you're supposed to do in order to get to this result is a very masculine structure. And that means that it doesn't work well for feminine energy people, estrogen dominant bodies, because it actually creates a ton of stress within our nervous system when we feel like we're not doing it correctly. That's what I kept running into over and over, is these women were experiencing dieting as, I'm not doing it correctly, I'm not doing it enough, and that's why I'm not there. Instead of this fluid process where we can actually sink into the process of getting there and let it be an experience of what feels good to me, what validates, my historical experience with food and appetite and weight loss and body image and all of these deeper things that are not being addressed and not being validated. When they're not being validated, they're just sort of lurking under the surface. And for a lot of women, it's enough to keep them held back from getting to their goal, because they have all these stories going of, I'm not doing it right, I'm not doing enough, I'm, not over here. And it really turns into this self-criticism that keeps them trapped in a space that doesn't feel good to them, instead of letting them kind of guide themselves and let them feel really empowered in the process of getting their needs met on a deeper level, physically, emotionally, spiritually, kind of this big picture, getting needs met approach.
Oh my God, Courtney, that sounds amazing.
Thank you.
That would be not ideal. And how is it for you look like when a client comes to you with all of this very wounded past topics, like tried already many things and makes herself wrong, or all that pattern we already have, or the way we deal ourselves and our body. When a client come to you, so where do you start? So with other hand, so there are many of my audience probably also dealing with those issues. What are you would recommend them as a first step?
Yeah. So an exercise that I do, I've been trained in constellations. It's based on the family constellation theory. And I really use something like that to help people see how they've been relating to their previous experiences.
Yeah.
A lot of times, all these previous experiences that we have that didn't add up to getting us over here can really kind of stand in the way, sort of like this big mountain we feel like we have to overcome, and we get overwhelmed. And so something really simple that I do in that process is to kind of facilitate seeing them shifting that around. So being, having all of that experience as, this is knowledge that I have in my back pocket, which just intuitively shifts you into the driver's seat of like, I have all this experience and it's a great thing because I know what works and what doesn't work for me. And so that exercise can be really insightful to let them see, hey, how they've been operating thus far, and get some tangible action items of, hey, this has worked and this has not worked for me, which means I'm not going to send you back down that path if it's going to frustrate you and lead nowhere. And let's pull some of these things that did work back, because the truth that I have found is that the basics are really still important. And we throw the baby out with the bathwater all too often when we get frustrated, and that's just kind of human nature. So does that answer the question? I feel like I kind of talked.
Absolutely does. Absolutely does. And it really brings up in me like these pictures and the stories from my past. And I'm absolutely with you in that car you described. So, and for example, I'm come from, my stepmother has been, food and Iranian culture itself is a whole story. It's very important for the many cultures, or like Iranian cultures, also a lot around food, also socializing around food and the meaning. And which is when you were describing, I was remembering that, like had not my stepmother, our relationship was not necessarily very good, but she was an amazing cook. And that's this, like, for me was this combination of, not getting nourished in the other way, but like the only way was like this an amazing food, even under very icky emotions, and day after day after day. So in as you were saying, I was just remembering this story and how is like I'm still the same way now. Like when other stuff is not working, I try to do it then with food, and at least that is the only source of pleasure then in that day or in that time of my life. And amazing stories, and I guess many of the women have deeper level, even generational topics. And you said constellation, I'm very, very excited about that. So, and you brought the inner child as well. I was just remembering a childhood story. So you bring in your model also the inner child. What's the role of the inner child in the whole?
I love that we're talking about this.
Yeah,
and thank you for sharing that story. Yeah, thank you for sharing that story, because food is so cultural and so social. And in my opinion, that was what was really missing in my training. I did have that conscious awareness that, that food is something that we gather around, but when we don't acknowledge it on an emotional level, that this has been meeting an emotional need for social belonging, social connection, emotional connection, when we're not actually seeing that for what it is, we can't prop that up and put something else there in a healthier way. And it really kind of invalidates or has you feel like you're doing it wrong all the time, because you don't realize, hey, I'm actually doing this really right from this lens. I'm really looking for social connection. I'm really looking to be emotionally supported. And this is how it was offered to me. And if we don't see it that way, or if we can't just honor that, hey, you are actually meeting a need here, then you're going to keep beating yourself up that I can't just let go of this thing. Why can't I just stop doing this behavior? And that's where kind of that more trauma-informed lens can be really powerful in regard to food and body image, because it's so ingrained often. It's a habit that we've done over and over again and met that need over and over again. So it's a really easy route to get that need met. So thank you for bringing that up. And that ties into the inner child, because the inner child, in my understanding, is the part of us that is actually getting that need met.
Totally. Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of times we don't realize just how influenced children are. And this isn't to say that you have, to go back into talk therapy for years and do a lot of inner child work. But again, it's just bringing some insight and some awareness to the fact that there's this thing running underneath the surface that we haven't actually addressed. And when we can look at it straight in the face and start finding other creative ways to get that need met, it just releases a lot of pressure and a lot of tension that allows us to get creative about how to move forward in changing some of these behaviors that frustrate us.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, that's exactly what you say. I mean, my current behavior with food is very similar like my 3 years old, like broccoli. So it's just going to the, give me chocolate, just give me chocolate, so it's very similar. It's interesting because that's exactly that, like that a little like messy child inside of me, which it doesn't want to be dominated or controlled by anything and anyone, not with a good result necessarily. It's just the immediate reward and pleasure is what what that child needs or thinks that it needs, that part. Yeah.
Yeah, such a great point. Because in my opinion, the inner child is very feminine in nature. It's kind of the immature feminine energy. And so as I teach feminine energy as it relates to food, we actually need a large amount of pleasure. They've shown that our brain seeks food because it's either pleasurable or because we're hungry. And so a lot of my clients will say, well, I eat chocolate. And I'm like, oh, cool. Are you hungry? And they're like, no, I'm not hungry. And so I'm like, okay, so this isn't part of it, which means we need to really like ramp this up so that your brain's actually registering, hey, I'm getting a need met. And this is what I want to focus on. So that it's not kind of like pulling you without your awareness. That's a great point.
Amazing stuff. So I'm getting even more and more curious about that. You talk as well about feel nourished from inside out, which is sounds amazing. And also like another healer relationship with food, which is also, that's well, wow, is it even possible? I see it a little more like just how you describe that you take us with this journey, what it could look like. So we both of us are relationship coaches as well. So what do you mean the relationship with food?
Yeah. So we're relational beings, as I see it. We're always looking for connections somewhere. And what I have found is that when we don't understand how we operate internally, we start to judge the behaviors that come out. And when that happens, judgment is usually a pretty good indicator that connection is being severed. And so in that way, food is actually going to be uncontrollable. It's going to feel like that thing outside of us that we have no control over, that we just sort of surrender all of our control to, and then we end up over here in this space that we also hate. And it really just triggers a lot of distress and a lot of pain and uncomfortable feelings because we're not getting what we want to be getting, and it fuels this, that pressure fuels these behaviors. So when I talk about relationship to food, what I'm really talking about is the experience of making choices that are in line with your values, your needs, learning how to show up authentically and ask for what you need. There's a lot of social skills, soft skills that go into something really simple like the way that we eat every day to make sure that we're actually experiencing it in a way that is like a healthy relationship with another person. And it's one of our longest standing relationships. We do it every day. We meet with this person, 2 to 3 times every day since we were born. And so it makes sense that if we don't start to develop skills to regulate ourselves in that experience, kind of like, how we relate with another human, we have to have some regulation happening over here and also some skills in order to create a healthy dynamic where both of our needs are able to get met and it's not creating this like power struggle, which I see a lot of people in. That's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about relationship to food. It can be as woo-woo as you want it to be, or it could be really practical on like a food psychology or a nutrition psychology level. When we don't feel like we're in charge of our body for whatever reason, it's going to create this kind of power struggle where we're always feeling like we have to be doing a lot more. It's going to create that over functioning feeling or this helpless feeling where, I just resign myself to always wanting chocolate and not actually feeling in charge of your health and your well-being.
Wow. Yeah, that's exactly. I can see that. How do you describe? Amazing.
Thank you.
And you also can bring it that there's a lot of elements to the topic of dating and relationships. So one of the obvious one, okay, what is the role of the body in the whole, body and relationship? And of course, many people or majority of the people then think, yeah, attraction, all around this topic. So the role of body in relationship or in dating is like, yeah, so I'm either more attractive or not more attractive, and in the relationship the same. So, and you talk about also positive body image. What is it more? So is that, what is the role of the body you see in dating? Like beside that external view, okay, how do I look like and how am I attractive enough? Or how do I, so what is the role of that? And I was wondering how you see it also in a relationship, so even long-term relationship, and the people, yes, and attraction has different meaning.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say that we both agree that energy is what creates the attraction. That there's a certain experience being around a person who, even physically, by cultural standards, you would be like, well, they're not, a supermodel, but I just am drawn to them. And what's happening is, and we've talked about this before, of like, it is actually the experience internally within themselves of either, yeah, I'm awesome. And, it has nothing to do with physical appearance. It's being able to stand in your authenticity and kind of stripped back to your most raw, honest version of yourself that attracts people. It attracts the right people, and it keeps them attracted. And what happens in long-term relationships that I've seen is that sometimes people will experience something in the relationship that they don't know how to either resolve or move through as a, bringing together, strengthening type experience. And what it does is it creates this, it like trips this old pattern within them that can sometimes be generational. That means I'm blah, blah, blah. That means I'm not attractive enough. That means I'm not blank enough. I'm not pretty enough. And that's immediately where women tend to go, is it's because I'm not attractive enough. And that causes her to kind of shrink her energy and like kind of retract. And that's what men experience, is that she's retracting. They don't understand why she's not open and bright and like shining anymore. They just realize, okay, something happened and she's kind of like withdrawing. And so it creates this kind of like, we're both wanting to move forward and neither of us know how to do it. And so eventually it just sort of flatlines, and people either stay there or they leave. And it can be very painful when it doesn't need to be. And sometimes food can be the pain reliever that we're looking for, because it is a very comforting thing to chew. The breakdown of the nutrients can be very comforting physically, and it releases that tension that we're feeling of like, I'm being constricted and I'm having to be this version of myself that feels small and helpless because no one's actually able to see me anymore.
Very wise words. Wow, absolutely.
Yeah, that's how they play together, and from what I've seen just through the years.
Absolutely. Food or other drugs for some aspects. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, yeah, it's, amazing wise words, Courtney. So is I would love to highlight here that you also coach men, so really also a lot of things from both perspectives. So because some of my audience might say, yeah, but men are visual and they like what they see and stuff. But you also really, what you describe is, also the other perspective, and what they tell you, what is for them attractive is not only like one-sided, or we think that there's more also the energy involved, but it's really, that's something men also smell, feel, resonates with, that deeper attraction than the visual one, which is media tries to tell us that's all about. Beautiful. So, Courtney, tell us about your current courses and programs. So that is an amazing, and I'm sure that many people got like way more curious to learn more from you. So, what do you have right now?
Yeah. So right now, for the month of December, I'm actually really wanting to get this content for Nourished into people's hands. So I'm gifting a large percentage of the cost for that course. It's 6+ hours of guided constellations where we're kind of shifting the dynamic that you have with these specific things that through the years in my experience are most triggering for people. Things like stepping on the scale, having to track your food, plateaus. Hitting a plateau can be really, really triggering and derail a lot of people. What to do with all of your experiences previously, appetite, these things that create a lot of shame for people in their eating patterns. My goal is to really shift it so that it feels empowering and gives you some insights and clarity to take the next step to keep you moving forward. So I've got that really, really discounted at this point, as well as
course, yeah. Right? This is a course, so it's a
course. Yeah,
perfect. Yep. Someone can do it self-paced and go into it. Perfect. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's it's really kind of easily done in about 12 weeks, realistically. So it's a pretty hefty course. It's about 6 hours worth of content between kind of introspection, some guided healing options, and then some new information, not only about what to eat, but also the energetics of what we talked about. So the masculine and feminine piece, the inner child, how all that plays in. I'm really proud of it. It's a pretty heavy course. Yeah.
Exactly. So something people would need really also at the beginning of the year. I can imagine like it comes automatically end of the year. Oh God, what am I going to do about this topic, which is on my plate? So beautiful. Okay.
Yeah. So my goal is to really set people up to thrive in the new year. I know New Year's resolutions are really common. So getting that mindset shifted in that direction can be really powerful. I have that. And I've also got Arise, which is the female version for dating. It's for women who are wanting to experience dating with some more groundedness, some more self-sovereignty, and not hyper independence, to be able to be like open and vulnerable with people, but not to create this huge amount of anxiety by doing that. So it really teaches how to navigate those situations in an empowering and mutually empowering way, and set boundaries, and kind of shifting your perspective on how you've been taught to do these things in dating. I have that. And then I'm also releasing the male version of that. So that's what you were sharing. I'm really excited for that. I'm taking male clients through a comparable curriculum. It's called Rooted, and it's really helping men root into their masculine energy in a way that facilitates relationships with feminine energy, being smooth and calm and drama-free, and really, again, mutually empowering and mutually beneficial. So those are the three main things that I have right now that I'm super proud of. I pour my heart and soul into it, and I'm excited to get it out there.
Wow. Yeah, beautiful. Sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Wonderful, Courtney. It was amazing. Thank you so much for these wise words. I've already learned a lot through this very short interview with you, and looking forward to hear more from you, and also together for the more collaboration. And yeah, so it would be a very exciting social eating a lot time of the year as well. Yeah. So is that how are you going then? And are you celebrating Christmas? And is that
yeah, so I do celebrate Christmas. I'll go home with my family, and I'm actually going to my boyfriend's family as well. So we've got lots of holiday parties going on, and yeah, it's something that has been really a game changer for me to sink into this work in those settings, because all of our stuff comes up when we're with our family, or that's been my perspective, that people's stuff comes up when we're around our family for holidays and things like that. And food, again, it's a different type of food, a different scenario, and we've got this added, stress or underlying habits that we have to act with our family in a certain way. So again, I really am. I've found that this work is really transformative in practice, as well as even just conceptually. So what about you? Holiday plans, what do you have?
we are at home, but we also gather with the children. That is also definitely with good cooking, and we have a very fusion family, so it will be usually doing fusion cultural foods, which is interesting as in creative as well. How can that Polish kitchen and Iranian kitchen go together? So
oh my gosh,
we come up with some funny ideas, and the kids have their own tastes and stuff they like it as well. But it's looking forward to this time. Courtney, thank you so much for your time and being here. And I wish you a lovely rest of the year and a lovely holidays.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanaz. Thank you
Thank
so much for
you.
having me.
Thank you so much. Your information about the website, we will add in that another video. So if someone wants to contact you, they can find you. And that's the best.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.